Greetings. It's Monday, November the 10th in the infamous year of 2025. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Monday Morning Report. Okay, well, election 25 came and went, and a lot of things seems to be going with it. New York City, everybody's talking about what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. Well, on the bright side, politicians have a wonderful habit of never delivering on what they promise, and there's no reason to believe the new Muslim mayor of that city is going to be any different. Although it is kind of disturbing. 25 years ago, if I had told someone that a Muslim immigrant who was also a dyed-in-the-wool communist was going to become mayor of New York City, less than a quarter of a century later, I'd probably be attacked, at least punched in the face a few times. Interesting. Now, this doesn't say that there aren't great Americans who are Muslims or immigrants or something like that, but usually they're the ones that like to adapt to what we have. They're the ones who love what the country has become and they want to put everything into it to make it better. And I've met many immigrants from the Middle East who are Muslims, and they're very good citizens. But if you come into someone's country and you want to become part of the tribe, it's a good idea not to, impose your will on them, the people that you want to have as neighbors and friends and maybe family. Now, has anyone noticed a pattern here? I'm going to point something out because here in Virginia we have a new governor, the first female governor, who former law enforcement and also a spy for the CIA. Boy, can we pick them. I heard an interview with her on a local news radio station, and when she was asked about the cooperation with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, otherwise known as ICE, to find illegals in the Commonwealth, she talked about how she would be setting that aside. She kind of went around the question, but it's kind of obvious she's going to allow the flood to come back in. There are many counties in Virginia that are sanctuaries, and they are absolutely hellish, dangerous, insane places to go to. So it doesn't look too good. We also are going to have a Democratic-run legislature. It's going to be a mess. And New Jersey is not going to be much better, but then again, New Jersey is New Jersey. Now, this is the pattern I want to point out. The top four economic centers of the United States of America, the top four economic powerhouses that drive most of the country are New York City and the metropolitan area, Chicago and the metropolitan area, Los Angeles and the metropolitan area, and Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., and the metropolitan area. That's a company town, of course. Most people are feeding the U.S. government or the people that work for the U.S. government, and since they haven't been paid in a while, local businesses are hurting badly. Outside of Washington, D.C. is something called the Dulles Toll Road Corridor. You know that road you take to the airport in and out of the Capitol? Well, it has trillions of dollars worth of business being conducted along those roads. High-tech, aerospace, defense, you name it, it's there. All four of these economic centers are now in the hands of political leadership that can best be described as incompetent. So what are we going to do? In spite of what a lot of people think, you cannot just run a country from the countryside. Cut off your gasoline, what are you going to get? No, cities are important for any civilization. In fact, civilization is always based around cities. You ever notice that? I mean, go back as far as Mesopotamia, and you'll see. So this combined with the federal government shutdown. Now, there is word this morning that the Senate has come to an agreement of some kind. Some Democrats have finally cried uncle. Mr. Schumer, arguably the most evil man in the United States right now, and that says something. He's trying to keep things shut down to get his way. Folks, the system we have is so broken, I can only see it being overhauled or rebuilt. And that's something that we have to consider. Where do we go from here? Well, a country cannot survive for long like this, and nature abhors a vacuum, especially if it's a political vacuum. So look for something to give, and something to give pretty soon. Even if the shutdown is reversed, it is going to take a fortune to restart things. This is something no one talks about, but the amount of money it takes to get things going again is a lot more than is ever saved. And these are people running our country that have never been to much of the rest of the world and don't even know how to balance a checkbook. Probably don't even know what a checkbook is. They have assistants for that. Yeah, you go into Congress with very little money and you accumulate a fortune of tens of millions of dollars in a few years. I wonder why that is. Meanwhile, of course, the Trump administration is being blamed for everything under the sun and then some. Yeah, he's being looked upon as someone who's also betrayed the mandate that got him elected in the first place. You notice that? An awful lot of people dropping away from him. Well, he's in the back pocket of Israel and the Israeli interests in the United States. Nobody can deny that. But everybody has started to notice that. In terms of food stamps, otherwise known as EBT, some states, including the Commonwealth of Virginia, are paying for it out of their own pockets. A lot of people, well, they think that everything is fine and people should just go off and get work and it's easy to find work. It's not anymore. My understanding is that stores like Walmart that have people in the front have waiting lists of 45 or 50 people to become greeters. You know those old people that sit up front? There's a long line for those sorts of jobs. A lot of small places are still closing. AI is wiping out massive amounts of work in this country. And that's what we have to look at right now. We have a combination of a bad economy, very bad management, unbridled corporate greed, all sorts of businesses that never recovered from COVID, and now we're trying to replace everything with computers. I have seen demonstrations of barbers that are completely robotic. I've seen fruit being picked. Don't know about that, but you never know what's real these days and what isn't. We have got to decide what to do with ourselves. Because when you have an inefficient government, an economy that is geared just towards making profit no matter how many people are hurt, I mean, it doesn't last. It really doesn't last, people. It really isn't going to continue. And we are not at the stage where I think we can really vote ourselves out of this. Because the people that we're voting for are as corrupt as they get. We're still waiting for someone to come save us. A lot of people thought that was Trump, and apparently that's not going to be the case. Now, this is going to sound kind of funny, but I'd love to hear ideas from you people. I have some correspondence with some of you, but how can we get out of this? How can we get out of this mess? That's the question that everyone has to be asking. Not who are we going to get us out of this mess? How are we going to get ourselves out of this mess? You see, one of the problems that Western man has, especially the United States, is we keep looking for someone to lead us out of the darkness. And if you look at recent human history, well, there's a lot of cases where countries in difficulty would look for one strong man to pull them up and pull them out, and it never goes well. Really doesn't. We need to have a totally different view of things and a totally different attitude and coming up with totally different solutions. Because the ones we've been repeating over and over, vote for this person, vote for that person, doesn't work. It really doesn't work. Remember, the United States is not a democracy. It is a constitutional federal republic. Big difference. You do not want mob rule, especially at a time like this. That's why we have the Electoral College. Otherwise, you just have a handful of insane cities being run by corrupt politicians running the whole country. Effectively, you have that now, except they're combined with corrupt politicians from the countryside as well. No. The federal government, as of this moment I'm recording this, is still shut down. How are we going to get out of this, people? How are we going to get out of this? That is the question. So stop trying to blame Trump or blame this or blame that. There are people to blame, of course, for the short-term problems. But I think what everybody has to do right now is just ask themselves and ask your neighbors and ask your friends, how are we going to get out of this situation so that we, the people, the individuals and the families that make up the United States, how are we going to go back to living the way we want to and the way we deserve? That's what has to be addressed. Nothing else matters, and nothing else is going to work. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies, and boy, are there a lot of those around. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com, and this podcast can be heard on Apple, Spotify, and similar platforms. And please consider a paid subscription or a donation. It keeps the lights on literally and figuratively. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, clown world, the deep state, and artificial intelligence must be destroyed. Good day.